Welcome back, everybody. This week in Challengers, we have Cup 1 wrapping on up. We have some drama on both the North American and EU side. We have some new teams showcasing their abilities here in competitive Call of Duty. And it is going to be a hell of a ride. We're excited to cover all of it. I'm Dandro. That's Enigma. Enigma, how you doing today, buddy?
Feeling real good. You've said it yourself. We've got a lot of drama to cover. We've results to get through, which is always very important this time of the season. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into it alongside you, my friend. Going to be a hell of an episode.
North American Challengers is always a very fun time to go ahead and watch, and it was great seeing this weekend all those teams really battle it out, right? I mean, we had a pretty decent idea, I think, of a lot of the squads that were going to make some deep runs, but we also had some upsets that happened, and some maybe squads that nobody had on their docket to make it on through. Let's go ahead. Let's take a look at the bracket to see how we're looking after sort of Cup number 1 here in the bracket. Walk me through it, Enigma. We had a couple of teams we wanted to highlight here. Whoops, we're from our stuff earlier on the lower bracket. Okay. Starting with the upper bracket side, though, there are a couple teams that we wanted to highlight. So who kind of jumped off the page for you from North America in the Cup this weekend?
Well, I think we got to start off with Project Notorious. Now, this was Yuli, Geo, Awakening, and Two Real, and this is the roster that I'm pretty sure they went in as like first seed on the pro points. So a lot of expectations. Of course, this is a team that has, of course, incredibly recent league experience, EWC experience, etc. Of course, Geo and Awakening. Two Real's been up there. He made it as well with, I forget the team that he was under. Was it Brooklyn? I don't know. But Two Real made it out there as well. And this is a ridiculously stacked squad. I think a lot of people are expecting something of it. But every year we get a team that kind of comes together as a really strong foursome, and you just expect ridiculous things that they can never really deliver on, and this might be that team. Of course, it's quite early, so 4th place in the first cup isn't bad. Still plenty of time to learn things, but it's a weird one. It's a case of, can these guys achieve what we all expect them to achieve? And obviously 4th place in the first cup, kind of a tough going to start things off.
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, when you look at their bracket run too, right? They lose in round 1 to Cabal, who, hey, we talked a lot about last week in our episode. Go watch it. I highly encourage you to be able to see that. We're going to talk a little bit more about Cabal this week, but so we know how strong this Cabal roster is, right? So round number 1, they go to 3-1, but Enigma, the second they get to this lower bracket, it is just 3-0 DoorDash Central. These guys were cooking. Going up against Five Fears, a roster that we highlighted that's looking really good as well. 3-0, no sweat. They go up against that 4 Fun roster, which is a really interesting roster to kind of talk about. They 3-0 them. And then who do they lose to? In another 3-1, it's Cabal yet again, right? In those, losers, what was that? Loser semis. So loser semis is where they go out. And it's just kind of like, I think if you are Notorious, you got to feel good about that. Like, obviously, sometimes there's a little bit of bracket, mess up there when you kind of talk about it, where you say, all right, we lost round 1 against Cabal, and then we only lost in losers to Cabal, which is like a blessing and a curse, right? Because it's like, you can look at it and say, well, we only lost to one team, so like we're feeling pretty good. But then it's like, if this team has your number, how does that sort of set you up for the rest of the Challenger season?
Well, I think this is a really good point, and this is kind of one to touch on, because again, Notorious are going to have massive expectations on them, and they should. They are a very strong roster, but I think, losing both times to Cabal, you and me have covered this already, and we'll talk a lot more about Cabal later, but they've looked fantastic so far. This is a team that has a lot of chemistry between them. Notorious, obviously a unit that are trying to gel together at this stage of the season. So I think if you are Notorious, you've smashed apart most of the rest of the bracket. And it's just a tough one. I mean, you also completely walked through Five Fears. We know how good they are. So, yeah, they do look fantastic. It's just a case of, I think you met your kryptonite in this tournament twice. And that's just basically that. That's how the cookie crumbles sometimes when you get yourself into these tournaments.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see, obviously what they can do in the coming months. I think, like we said, they showcased in this first cup, like you mentioned, getting 4th is something that you have to try and keep in the back of your head. But I think that they are going to be a team that we can't sleep on when it comes to these future weekends. But got a lot of squads to talk about. Let's talk about Falcons Academy White here, my friend. Obviously, they make it all the way to the losers finals going up against Cabal. They drop 3-1. This is a roster that I think nobody is surprised to see here, right? Falcons Academy White being, of course, Arsenis, King of Body, Paul X, and Priesta. Now, we had seen this roster a little bit, right, in the Black Ops 7 showcase. And at sometimes maybe looked a little disjointed. I was kind of curious to see how they would do. I gotta say though, Priesta, I don't know if maybe he was still just kind of getting the game underneath his belt, looked a lot better in the cup this weekend. I will say that. I actually think this game, I think back to Black Ops 4 Priesta, right? He was an absolute menace on the map, and Black Ops 7 feels very reminiscent of sort of that Black Ops 4 playstyle. And I feel like after just the Call of Duties we've had since that Black Ops 4, it feels like he's had to like unlearn some things of how he's played through the last Call of Duties to then get back to what made him such a monster in that title to get here. Was really impressed with his play style all weekend.
100%, and I'm really glad to see it as well. I think Priester had taken quite a knock to his confidence, not even just last season, I think the season before as well. I think he was kind of going through a bit of a rut, so to see him start off this season a little slower when we got that early look at him, I was a little bit concerned, but to see him bounce back big was really good to get to witness, because he's a great character, great player, has taken a lot of slack for some reason over the last like 2 seasons, but hopefully this is the moment where he reminds everyone who he is, steps back up into the league at some point with a chip on his shoulder. I think the impressive thing for this team is they do beat Cabal, and it was just clean 3-0 as well, which if this Falcons white roster are coming together and have, again, time to figure a couple of things out, learn especially the finer modes in S&D and Overload, so 3-0 a unit like Cabal is very impressive. You do then lose in the lower finals, lower semis, I think it was in the end, or somewhere down there to Cabal, but
lower finals.
Lower finals, my bad. So you lose then to them, but that could have been Cabal making adjustments. Yeah. And again, Cabal have all of this chemistry, so maybe they've got deeper playbooks, stuff like that, deeper map pools at this point. But it's good to see Falcons Academy White looking better every time we get to watch them. RCTs and Pollux, again, 2 players that would love to get themselves back into the league. And I think the 4th name there, King of Body, this is a player that I think when he got his shot very briefly in the league, it wasn't pretty. So I'd like to see that player. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping it was. It was too early. Give the boy a chance to play out through NA, get those reps in, grow, and hopefully get another shot at things, and look much improved. I don't know, we always like a redemption story.
Yeah, no, we love a good redemption story. But to talk about kind of, you mentioned them in a little bit, and let's go ahead, let's shift gears, right? So Falcons Academy White, they go up against Cabal, it's a 3-0, but in that losers final, it's a 3-0 back in Cabal's favor, right? Now, we spent a large part of one episode kind of teeing up this team and why we're so excited to see them. So I want to just kind of, for a quick moment, laser focus in here on something that we noticed very early on with Cabal that we see yet again here in this bracket. And you mentioned the word before, adaptation, right? Cabal lose to Falcons Academy White in that winners bracket side, and now they come in, and when it comes time to losers finals, they say, okay, cool, we're gonna make all those adjustments that we need to in order to come out swinging. And I think yet again, that is what makes this Cabal roster so scary. Time and time again, we see them. It's the mid-map adjustments, it's the adjustments in between series that are there. It really feels like with this Cabal team, it's like the more they're going to play, just the better they're going to become. The more information they have on their opponent, they're just going to get scarier and scarier. So I think if you are Cabal, you're looking at this Cup 1. Yes, you did get all the way to the grand finals. You fall a little bit short, but you have to look at your run through the bracket and still feel pretty good about it.
100%. I think that this Cabal team, and in particular Rupert and KB, don't get me wrong, all 4 of them fantastic talents, but Rupert and KB have been terrifying very early on this season. This is a run from them. We have spoken about the players on this roster before. Right at the top of the season, it was kind of, you showed last year that you could get to elites. You showed last year that you could get yourself into that division of talent, that shelf of talent directly underneath the league. But are you good enough just to get there, or can you be more competitive? Now, obviously, the elites will start in January. And this is a hell of a way to say that actually you're going to be at the forefront of that. You're very much so going to mix it. The fact that you were able to improve, figure out how to beat Falcons Academy White, and then get yourself into Grands as well. Yes, you end up losing in the end, but the roster that they lose to is stacked to Jesus. So like, it's one of those for Cabal where it's just like, this is a team that, again, just gets better every time we see them. I wouldn't be surprised if the next time they go up against Bush, they've managed to make a couple of tweaks that make them much more competitive in that way. That's if Rupert and KB aren't already on people's radars, because I'm telling you, they should be.
Yeah, and that is kind of something I'll be thinking about as well, right? With a lot of these rosters, might be some CDL teams looking to make some moves early on, and I think some of these Cabal players, they're at an all-time premium. But obviously, none of those teams were the victor. We got to talk about the Bush, baby. That's right, Telluride Bush are your Challengers Cup #1 champions coming out. That is, of course, TJ, Capsule, Spart, and ProLoot. I don't know about you, Enigma. I don't know if any of us are necessarily like surprised that this team came in and took the dub, right? These are all ex-CDL pros. They've had a little bit of extra reps, right, through things like the Monster 75K and some other avenues as well. But I want to give them the credit where the credit is due, right? Cabal, we saw how, stacked that team is, and that grand finals looked very one-sided.
He did, and it was also one-sided pretty much through the entirety of the bracket. 3-0'd Falcons Academy-wide, 3-1 the For Fun roster, and 3-0'd Next Threat GG. That's just on the Sunday, let alone what they did to everybody on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really strong performance from this team. Are we surprised that they're this good? No, but I think going back to what we were saying about that Notorious roster, sometimes you can throw 4 very talented players together in North America and it just doesn't work for some reason. Well, Notorious look great. We've already kind of covered that, but it's a case of sometimes the expectations can be overbearing for these teams, whereas Bush go out and put on a show, which is a wonderful thing for everybody, not only them, but everything challengers, because they have got so much support and love coming in from the Barstool guys over there. Getting to see all this and the reactions and how passionate they were for everything challengers was just a delight, man.
Yeah, I mean, you even see here, right? Like Jersey Jerry's just tweeting out a clip from their watch party of TJ just going insane on Scar Hardpoint. I think Pops like literally goes on like a 4 or 5 spree in this clip that's there. Really crazy. And the fact that he's tweeting this dude, 2.3K likes, 110 favorites, like you mentioned, it's just like, this just feels like there's this renewed energy around challengers this year. And I love that this team obviously is getting the support that they are, but that they're also sort of answering the call on that support, right? So you're going to have a lot of people who are getting into challengers, who are getting into competitive Call of Duty, who maybe haven't, right? Because I think that's like the thing you have to remember here is like Barstool is going to be serving an audience of dudes who just hop on and play a couple games of COD every day and have no idea what any of the competitive landscape is. So when you have a really good team that's now obviously representing your org as well, and their team is winning, there's going to be these people who go, whoa, okay, like let me tune into this, right? When you got some personalities, of course, like, Lil Sass and Connor and obviously Jersey Jerry, who are throwing a great watch party alongside it, it's always a great time to be able to see that. Now, here's the thing, Enigma. The other half side of this coin is that obviously it wouldn't be a Challengers Cup without drama, my friend.
No.
And unfortunately, the Bush found themselves in a little bit of that drama. And let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. Jersey Jerry goes on a rant here, posted 3.8K likes at the commissioner of the Call of Duty League, Mr. Daniel Say himself, saying, what are we doing? Okay, the long and short of it, friends, Bush, they're making a run through that bracket and they're waiting to play somebody who's actually playing at a local event that's going on. And so they're waiting for this team at the local event to get done their match until they can go ahead and play Bush. And Jersey's like, what are we doing? Challengers Cup should be the number one thing that's going on. Your local land should come second. Why are my boys having to get iced waiting for you to play this completely separate other event? And he brings up a very good question. How is this team not forfeited?
Yeah, so I believe, I don't necessarily want to call it specific players, but I believe one of them was Wake and someone else who went to a local and were playing the Challengers event from there while the local was going on. That then basically set everybody else back. Now, God bless Daniel Say. Don't get me wrong, some folks have plenty to say out there. This one, you just don't see coming. There's a CDL commissioner who's got plenty going on week 1 to be atted by Jersey Jerry and be like, the hell are you talking about? What do you mean someone's not turned up for their game? Like, God bless that guy. But you're going to look, if you were able to scroll, like some of the responses, you're going to see like people were very much so on the side of Jersey Jerry, and correctly so. You cannot be holding up the Challengers Cup. Like, this is the Call of Duty League Challengers. I don't care what else you're playing in. It takes precedent unless you are in the COD League, which you wouldn't then be playing in the Cup anyway. Yeah. So this is one of those moments where it's kind of like those players definitely should have been forfeited. God bless the players for not forfeiting them and scrubbing them. That is a very kind thing to do. But also Jersey Jerry was completely in his right. You see the effort that they've gone to there, the watch party that they've got going on, so much love, so much support for the whole scene, and they're having to sit there and twiddle their thumbs and go, what the hell's going on? So I can understand the disappointment. Probably a little bit unfair to tag Daniel Say, but it looks like eventually it all got sorted, and I hope that Wake and whoever else it was kind of get a slap on the wrist and say, don't do that again.
The thing that killed me the most, dude, Jerry referenced a specific line in the Challengers rulebook. You and I have been casting Call of Duty
not a clue.
A long time. Have you ever looked at the Challengers rulebook?
Nope.
Ever? I've never looked at it. I don't think most of the people who play in the Challengers events have ever even know where to find that document. And the second this is happening, what's he do? I'm opening the Challengers rule. I'm referencing the exact line and point. And I'm kind of like, hey, that's a level of like professionalism, I'm going to call it, that you love to see being brought to challengers, right? And not only is it like that, but it just shows that he cares. And I think it'd be so, like, we've seen this time and time again in Call of Duty where like you get these big names, these big orgs who come in for a season and then all of a sudden they go ghost and you never hear from them again, or they're never really even supporting. So the fact that he's here adding the CDL commissioner and referencing specific rules in the rule book, hey, I love the passion. Keep it going, dude.
They've been here 2 minutes, and I'm hoping that they are here for seasons at this point, just because they care. Like, look at the animation in this guy's like, look at how fucking worked up he is right now. Good on him, right? Like, he's obviously investing a lot of money, time, effort, and pointing that at the correct person. Yes, you understand that that is frustration coming through right there, and it's just wonderful to see that they care so much. Hopefully, the team continue to deliver ridiculous results, and we get a lot more Jersey Jerry, hopefully happier, hopefully back in the clip-on tie, all over our timeline. So, coming into Cup 1 then, there was a team that we did really want to keep our eyes on. Dan, we talked about them in last week's episode. It was, of course, the OpTic Nation / Huntsmen roster. This is, of course, Renegade, Rispy, Neum, and Kips. A really strong foursome there. And a team that, of course, going to have a lot of eyes on them. The entire green wall keeping track of this. Another wonderful little notch in the Challenger season that we've got ahead. But I guess this is the moment where we find out, actually, how did they look and how did they even do through Cup 1?
Yeah, so they actually get top 16, which realistically, all things considered, with over 400 teams entering in the first cup, I think is not that bad, right? They had 4 days of scrims going into this cup, because obviously you had that swap out where Bound, steps away from the team, which is totally valid. And then they obviously bring in, the new player. And so it's only as a 4-stack. They weren't there very long. But I love that they're able to kind of have this sort of Huntsman aesthetic now also brought with them. I think that maybe helps energizes the team, but getting top 16 isn't bad. There was a really cool video Methods had where it was from, after the CDL was over, Scump, Methods, Formal, they're doing a watch party along to basically the last match in the bracket that the Huntsmen were playing in. And it was really cool to kind of obviously hear all three of their thoughts on the team, how they were playing. Like, they were calling out things that like the team was blatantly doing wrong and like what they could do better. And I just thought that was so cool to see that. Some of the key things I think that was to highlight was, one, obviously there's a big question mark around Renegade and his performance. And one thing that I noticed is that he had so many moments too where he was making such the right play, and the dude is going for 2 or for 3, right? And that's exactly what he was known for in Halo. He was the guy that would fly forward, and he was good for 2 or 3. The thing is, though, Halo has a lot bigger of a TTK. You can really get away with some stuff, right? You can get shot first and still manage to come out on top. You don't have that same luxury in Call of Duty, and there were definitely some marquee times, and especially I'm thinking back to like a Den Hardpoint that they played in map number 1. Came down very, very close to the very end, and there was like a couple moments where Renegade kind of overheats a little bit. The other thing that was very funny, he just has to learn how to use some tack and nades, and that was like a big thing. And it was cool to hear Formal say he was like, Formal was like, that was the biggest thing when I kind of came back over to COD from Halo. Like, oh wait, I have to use these every single time. It was more prevalent yet again on that Den Hardpoint. P2, that thing is in a closet. It is close. You are just spamming tacks and nades. There were times where he's like, Renegade sitting in a corner, has a trophy available to use. There's like 45 seconds on the hill, and they're raging at him to use the trophy. They're like, if you're not going to use it, take it off. Like that's there. It's
give
like
it to someone else.
Yeah, give it to somebody else. But it was still really cool. I got to give a shout out to my boy Neum, because there were so many times, map over map, especially in the search and destroys, boy was taking over. Neum was looking absolutely insane. So it gives me a lot of hope, gives me a lot of energy, I think, for this team, moving throughout the year. Obviously not one of our top 4 teams that we highlighted, but I think one that we still have to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of the points that you make there are really important, and we have to be fair to this. Like, of course, Renegade coming in over from Halo, it's going to take time to get used to that. You talk about the tax, nades, trophy, very important things in Call of Duty that as soon as you unlock that box, suddenly you become a 50 times better player. Like, I know myself. I've played COD for so long, and all of a sudden I go, oh yeah, my nades and my stuns are kind of useful. Like, I should probably be using them more. So no doubt it's taking him a second to get there. And we've seen this transition from so many Halo players in the past. Formal being one of them. Shotzi, the list could go on for quite some time, where they start off a certain way and they get those repetitions in, they get that learning in. Again, the fact that this team comes together last second, we get 4 days of scrims. Like, that's just not a lot of time for a team to even come together. So if you're Renegades, you're trying to learn the game at this level, then you're also trying to figure out your team system. So a lot going on. Love that Neum's having his highlight moment. We love that boy to death. So talented. But it's the watch party element for me. Again, like just watching the OpTic boys, watching, Methods and everyone else kind of tune into that and go ballistic. This is the best Challengers has ever felt, in my opinion, since we've moved to this franchise model. And it's largely because we've got these wonderful people watching over you. Someone like Scump, Formal, Methods, all sitting there and saying, oh, this is how I would improve this. This is what I would do. That was a good play. I don't know if we've had anything like that over the last couple of years. And just getting to watch everybody get excited about Challengers, truly a wonderful moment.
But enough about North America. We also had the EMEA Cup going on at the same time as well. So let's go ahead and let's hop on into it, my dude, as we get ready to talk about some of this bracket, because we had yet again some upsets, but also I feel like a new team kind of maybe securing their spot as the front runners for EMEA.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on, of course, quite a few of these different teams, but starting off with the Frenchies. This is a team that is Melko, Cobra, Linz, and Brezzy. Now, you should recognize Linz was in the league as of last year. You should also recognize Brezzy and Cobra. They've been flittering around and towards bits and pieces in and out of the league. Melko, this is going to be a newer name for pretty much everybody. I mean, it's one of those players that we've seen before in EMEA, but now getting the opportunity to step it up in grand finals, and this team do deliver in what was a very close grand finals. 4-3 in a best of 7 is a wonderful showing. So, yeah, a team that has impressed to start things off. That being said, it feels like a weird one watching these four come together, because sometimes, I mean, I love it, and I've told you about this plenty when we do our Warzone casting, of course. I think in Europe, we're blessed to have this kind of like, there's the French, the Italians, the Spanish. The one problem it can deliver for you is that you can become a little bit pigeonholed in that situation. So that's my only concern for some of these players. Yes, Linz got into the league, but you couldn't necessarily say it was a successful stint in the league. So then it's a case of, for the other players as well, it's like you've bounced out if you've been in and so on. That's my only concern. It's like, if you do get to the very top of Challengers, where's your entry? That's my only worry at this point. But otherwise, they look great.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good shout. That I'm kind of right there with you too, where exactly, it's like, if we have a team like the Frenchies just run EMEA side on the Challengers, exactly. It's like you have to kind of showcase that you can also slot into a non-French team and still also be able to perform that's there. So I think that's definitely something to kind of think about as well. Project 7 is who they inevitably go up against in that grand finals, like I said, going all the way towards that map 7. For P7 though, really was just kind of like they ran their upper bracket, right? They go 3-0 in their first round. They go up against Dark Horse Esports all the way to a map 5. And then it's in that winners finals where they drop to Frenchies. And then, okay, they head into the lower bracket, go up again, yes, against Dark Horse Esports, to then go against the Frenchies. So similar to what we talked about earlier on the NA side, that is kind of my only worry, with P7 is that like, it kind of feels like you only fought 2 teams in this cup, right? Obviously you had to get to this day 2 in order to do that. So you had to go through a pretty grueler day number 1 to get there. Totally understand that. But yet again, still my same kind of question here, where you've only fought basically Dark Horse and Frenchies, who are both looking like really good teams. So can you still also have that same level of dominance outside of those teams, or will also that be a great experience, moving forward?
It's a tough one for European teams, and I think that this squad is going to fall right into that bracket of, I don't know if your performance in Europe is going to matter. I think it's going to be more a case of what happens at those lands. When you go to the Challenger Opens this year, you have to perform there. That's going to be the moment when teams decide whether or not you're worth the pickup, I think. I don't know. It's a weird one because Europe is so top heavy. The minimum that all of the teams that we're going to talk about today should be doing really is getting to Sunday. Then it's a case of you've got to win and dominate really to look like a team or an individual player that should be able to get that opportunity in the league. So I think Project 7 definitely fall into that. So losing in the final, I think they were winning in the finals, but I think they lost the last 2 maps. If I'm correct, I might be wrong there, but I know they were leading initially in the finals, and it's for them, even if they'd have won this tournament, it's still a case of you're going to have to win it again and again, or you're going to have to do something else to show that you deserve that jump. So for all these teams right now, I think Project 7 are definitely in that bracket of actually we're building towards the LAN. We're not too worried. Obviously, there's the elites. We're not too worried about the fact that we lose this cup. Yeah.
No, I'm definitely excited to see, we talked about it in our, intro episode. And I'm excited to kind of see it here where yet again, you have 2 now really, large European Challenger Open events that you very easily can go to. So yeah, it's like, definitely, look good here online is one thing. Looking good at those lands is going to be a completely different beast. And I think where you really kind of get that check mark of, okay, you are a team to watch, you are a team to look out for, and that we have to really kind of keep you on our radar. So be very excited to see how obviously they managed to do throughout the year. Also, I want to give, I think, let's just talk about Dark Horse Esports just a little bit, because they go up against early round this Rock Esports roster, which is very interesting because 3/4 of that roster is just basically the Falcons starting roster from last year. That's there, right? And so Dark Horse, they're able to come on through. They, get that early 3-1. They're actually the only game in that first round that, they're the only team to drop a map in that first round, and then go to a game 5 against Project 7. And then, down there in the lower bracket, it's a 3-1, it's a 3-1. And then unfortunately just basically get bodied in that losers finals by P7. So we'd love to see them kind of have some moments. That is, of course, Mighty Nadox, Depa, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the
Sykes is how we've been going with it. Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't begrudge anyone calling him Six, but Sykes is what I think it is. I think that the one thing to touch on with this team, and it feels the same conversation that we have in Warzone, is this French Revolution all of a sudden.
Yeah.
This is for Frenchmen, the winners, of course, being Frenchmen. In Warzone, we have now not only, of course, the General Mace roster that finished second DWC and World Series, but then almost layers of talent starting to appear. I don't know what they've been feeding the French players over the last 5 years, but suddenly we're getting waves of talent come out of everywhere.
Yeah.
This team obviously finished third, but they didn't exactly go quietly into the night. They were there to compete all the way through this bracket.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a team that after we get through a couple more weekends of the Cup that we're going to be keeping our eye on, right? And that's kind of the fun part of Cup number 1, right? We get our first seeing of the competition, especially in the EMEA region, that we now have sort of some stats to go on and some, rankings to kind of end up on. So very excited to see how a lot of these teams will do in the future weekends of the EMEA Cup. But just like North America, guess what? EU was also in a little bit of drama here. With maybe some teams not wanting a codcaster in their lobby.
Yeah, so this I'll be straight out with you. This sucked. This was just terrible to watch. Like, Challengers is one of those spaces right now that, as we've talked about, it feels very fresh. It feels like all of a sudden we're getting this boom in the space, something that everybody in the space has been asking for. Those of us who've cast it, those of us who've played it, those of us who make content around it, we have been begging for this kind of moment to come online. And for years, we've been dealing with a situation where some teams go, I don't want people to be casting inside my games. First of all, that's just dumb. Like, the best way to not only get yourself recognized as a player is to have that be broadcast. Seeing your name listed on a victory graphic means fuck all, quite frankly. To have your name be tied to, I've watched that guy play. One of the reasons we talk so highly of players like Neum is because that guy passes the eye test every single time we get the opportunity. Even though he finishes top 16 this weekend, no one cares because we know how good he is. We have this situation in Europe where so many people are bothered. I don't know if it's protecting strategy. If so, that's dumb. I don't know if it's just a complete lack of understanding of building around the scene or not caring about the scene and only caring for yourself. Fine. But this is the best way to build your personal brand. The only way that people are going to know your name is if they can tune into the stream and get to watch it. I was in with Bants all afternoon. I was kind of doing a bit of work and stuff, watching the COD League at the same time, etc. Tuning in with Bants, tuned in with a couple other people who were running shows, CDC Intel as well. And they couldn't tune into the majority of the grand finals. We had all sorts of issues just not being able to watch games. And that is unacceptable.
Wasn't it like they wouldn't let them watch winter finals when they said, we'll let you watch grand finals? And it was like,
and then
what?
Bants wasn't allowed in because Beans was in the call. And it was in case Beans, I don't know the real, apparently it was something to do with in case Beans was passing on intel. It was like, why would Beans, the CDL player, ever throw? But then apparently that was a mistranslation or something. And that wasn't actually, either way, I don't give a shit, quite frankly. Get him to watch over your gameplay. Like, don't get me wrong, Bants, it was wonderful to see him put the stream up. It's not exactly riveting commentary that's going on there. He's just watching the gameplay go on and saying, why the hell's that guy done that? Why has he done this? That's what Bants was doing. And that's still great because hundreds of us were willing to tune in and watch that gameplay. And, well, you screwed not only all of us over, but yourselves because, again, for the Frenchies, we should be sitting here being like, well, Lynn's pulled off this play. Brezzy did that. Cobra did this. No one knows. You've just won a graphic and $2,500, I think it was, for first place.
And I think, like, the thing is to me is that, like, as a team, you're allowed to ask the casters to do particular things, right? Say, hey, can you cover the minimap? I think that's valid. Can you throw on a delay? Sure. Very valid, right? Like some of those things. Or it'd be like, hey, can you not share comms or something like that? Which, I guess if you're inside the game, you're not going to see anyway. But like, some of those things you are allowed to ask for, and I think are very, very acceptable and reasonable, right? Where you say, hey, we want to not have our breakoffs really leaked as much. So whatever, and I think, that to me is realistically like what it kind of comes down to is like, you can ask those casters or people who are trying to hop in the games to provide coverage. You can ask those things from them and, kind of have a little bit of give and take, and that's going to be okay. Anybody who's trying to hop in is going to be more than okay with that.
Yeah, I think the one thing to like asterisk next to it, if for anyone, because there's going to be people watch this who say, you don't know what you're talking about. I guarantee you right now that the people are 100%, but like whatever. The thing is, if you look at like the teams that finish top inside of Europe, Frenchies win in Europe and they're underneath the name Frenchies. Why don't they have an org? Why do people like Bush have an organization over in North America? Those players have brands, they have reputations, they have viewership. Of course, Bush bringing plenty of their own over, but it's a case of the Frenchies could definitely end up, like, what's to say the gentlemen don't pick up an academy team?
I was just about to say, like, if only there was some sort of massive French European organization.
Jesus Christ, it just blows my mind how short-sighted some people are. Like, the thing is, well, a lot of these players who've been in the league, you should know how short-lived it can be. Yes. This is your opportunity to make a lot of money in challengers. Get yourself an organization. Get your trips funded for the year at the very least. I don't know, man. Like, sometimes I just want to like shake somebody and try and see if there's any brain cells rattling around in there. It blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that maybe by Cup 2 stuff is really like figured out. That is there. I mean, like you mentioned, EMEA is a region that is trying to kind of prove themselves a little bit, right? That proves that they deserve the majors, that they deserve the viewership, but there's a whole swath of players that are oftentimes looked over in every single offseason when you're trying to construct these teams. And so you're not doing yourself any favors, like you mentioned, about not trying to showcase out your talent or showcase that you have what it takes to play Call of Duty at the highest level that's there. So I'm hoping that by Cup 2, we've really been able to figure a lot of this stuff out. We can pray to the COD gods, and hopefully we get that one figured out. That's everything for this week, guys. If you've enjoyed the episode, of course, do leave a like, comment, all the rest of it. Please do subscribe. Plenty of these coming every single week. Me and Dan are committing into this. But also, if there's different story points that we've kind of touched on here that you'd love to get involved in and have a bit of back and forth, we are responding in those comments. Also, if you're thinking, hang on a minute, they mentioned previous episodes and I haven't seen those, make sure to go and check them out. Again, plenty of content already done, plenty on the way. But for all of today, I've been Enigma. That's been Dandro. We'll see you in the next one.